You've driven out to the country looking for the perfect crossroads. You can hear every step you take. The moon is out and it should be cooler by now, but there's still sweat trickling down your back. You've taken a few roads already, but none of them lead anywhere. This one's no different. Empty, quiet, forgotten. There are no signs, no lights. In the distance, you can barely make out a fence line, and every once in a while, something moves in the grass next to the road. Finally, up ahead, the road splits in 4 directions, a crossroads. Something about this one feels different, and you notice that it's been walked over so many times that the dust doesn't move anymore. There's something sitting in the center. You can't tell if it's a stump or a rock or someone squatting in the dark. When you walk up to it, nothing's there. But you brought something with you. It might be a guitar, a note, a jar full of black-eyed peas. Doesn't matter what. It just matters that you brought it because you want something and you're ready to offer something up. If you mean it, really mean it, someone might show up. Might be a man in black, might be a dog with strange eyes. It might be a stranger who knows your name before you speak. He'll offer you a deal, but not for your soul. That's not what this is. He wants something closer to you, something you didn't plan to give up. You might walk away with what you came for, but you won't walk away the same. I'm Papa G, and this is the Feral Folklorist. And tonight we're heading to the crossroads, the kind you find on a map, and the kind that only shows up when you've run out of safe choices. In this episode, we're talking about the blues singer Robert Johnson. But let's get something out of the way first. Robert Johnson didn't invent the crossroads story, but he did make it famous. He was born in 1911 in Hazelhurst, Mississippi, poor, black, and ambitious. But this was America at a time where ambition didn't mean much if you looked like him. There wasn't much room for someone like that to rise to fame or find success. Early on, folks said he was a decent playing harmonica player, but not much of a guitarist. Then he vanished for several months. It was long enough to get people talking, get them curious, and they started telling stories. When he came back, he played like he had been born holding a guitar. His fingers moved in ways that shouldn't have been possible, and people noticed. Stories started, and one of them said he went to the crossroads, met the devil, made a trade, and got the gift. Now, nobody agrees where this crossroads was. Some say Highway 61 and 49 in Clarksdale. Others say it's somewhere deeper in the Delta, only found by those who know how to look for it. Doesn't really matter. The location isn't the point. The belief is. But what most likely happened during those missing months was he was in Arkansas, staying with the family of Ike Zimmerman. According to Ike himself, Robert lived there for a while, studying guitar with Ike's father. That would make more sense, but didn't sound as magical. So Robert leaned into the crossroads story. You can hear it in his lyrics, Crossroad Blues and Me and the Devil Blues. He understood the power of the story, and his music made the myth feel real. So either something truly magical happened to him, or he understood the power of PR. In just a few short years, Robert recorded 29 songs that would shape the future of blues and rock. He played in juke joints, street corners, wherever he could, but his sound traveled. Musicians who came after him didn't just hear the skill, they felt the weight of something deeper. He did die young, 27. They say it was poison slipped into a drink by someone with a grudge, and rumor has it that that grudge was a jealous husband whose wife was either having an affair with Robert or it was a really strong flirtation. But the legend lived on. because it offered something people needed. But this whole idea of making a deal at the crossroads, it didn't start with him. This was old magic. In West and Central African religion, the crossroads is a spiritual site. It's a space between spaces, not evil, just powerful. A place where spirits can be contacted and where you can ask or offer or both. There's usually a keeper at the crossroads. Sometimes he's called Papa Legba, sometimes Eshu, sometimes Elegua. Different names, same job. You really don't reach the spirit world without going through him. He is the gatekeeper of the crossroads. When Africans were enslaved and brought to the Americas, they didn't leave that knowledge behind. They brought it with them. They concealed it from their enslavers by hiding it in plain sight, by folding it into Christian imagery and practice. And in essence, that's how Hoodoo started. In Hoodoo, crossroads stayed sacred, a place to work, a place to bury, a place to ask questions. Not a thing to fear, but a tool to use carefully. So if you want to learn something fast, take your guitar to the crossroads at sunrise, play, and if a tall man comes and plays it back to you better than you thought possible, you've been chosen. But he isn't always the devil. Sometimes he's the spirit of the place. Sometimes just a messenger. It depends on who you ask. And if you live in the South, it might depend on what your preacher says. The deal with this devil story goes back even further in Europe. It is said that Faust made a deal with the demon Mephistopheles in exchange for knowledge and power, which ended pretty badly because his soul gets dragged to hell, depending on which version you listen to. But that wasn't new either. Christian Europe had plenty of stories like this. Someone's too pretty or they're too lucky. It must mean the devil is close to them. They've made a deal to get that way. If they're too good at something, you need to stay clear of them. These weren't just moral stories. They were ways of explaining greatness, especially when greatness made people uncomfortable. So where did these stories happen? They happen in the in-between places where one thing turns into another, such as like a graveyard. A graveyard is where the living meet the dead, or the edge of the forest. It's where the wild starts. It might be a riverbank where the land turns to water, or the crossroads. All of these would be edge places, things on the edge, things on liminal spaces. So in all of that, you've got African religion, European superstition, a little bit of Christian fear came all together in the American South. You've got something new. You've got the blues, you've got hoodoo, and you've got crossroads stories. And eventually you got Robert Johnson playing 6 notes where 3 would have been enough. What stuck wasn't just the myth, it was the feeling behind it. That idea that wanting something badly enough can shift your fate, just maybe not for free. So let's talk about the crossroads, not as a symbol, but as a real place people still work. In Hoodoo, the crossroads isn't spooky or mysterious, it's functional. It's where you go to make something move, to bury something or to ask for help, or to step into something new. Now, a crossroads is usually a 4-way intersection, but it doesn't have to be. In magical terms, it's really any space where 2 paths meet and form this decision point. It's where a trail hits a riverbank, like we said before, or asphalt turns into gravel, where the woods begin. We talked about the forest. What matters is that it's an in-between. It's not about the map. It's about the energy of that place. And these are spaces where the rules get a little looser and the boundaries sort of thin out. That's what makes them useful, magically speaking. One of the oldest uses is disposal. Let's say you finished a magical working, especially something like really heavy, like a breakup spell or a banishing. You don't want to keep those remains around. They have a baneful energy to them. So you take them to the crossroads. The old way is to toss them over your left shoulder and walk away without looking back. You don't speak to anyone on the way home. You don't look at anyone. That's how you close it out. And that's also how you don't drag it back home with you. You can also go there to bury your petitions. If you're asking for luck or clarity, or justice, or any kind of forward motion, you write it down and bury it at the crossroads. This idea is simple. You're putting it in the hands of the spirits who move in all directions. That petition doesn't stay stuck, it travels. It's at this four-way place and going in four different directions. Offerings happen there too, especially if you're working with spirits like Papa Lekba or Eshu. You leave what they ask for, not what you think looks magical. So it might be coins or rum, wrapped candy or cigars, but always ask first. Spirits, they don't like to be handed junk just because you read it in a book somewhere. Really research about that spirit, what the traditions are, and what the offerings could be to them. And if you don't know, ask someone from that tradition. So if you're going to make an offering, you talk, you introduce yourself, and you state your purpose. Otherwise, you're just littering the place if you don't go there with this strong intention and state what your purpose is. Then there's skill work. Now, old school folks say if you want to get good at something, music or writing or tarot card reading or any craft that makes you more talented, you show up at the crossroads before sunrise for 7 days straight. You bring your tool and you practice. If the spirit of that place sees you and sees you're serious, your work will sharpen faster than you really expected. Some people call that making a deal, but it's not always a trade. Sometimes it's just recognition. You showed up and the place noticed. And yeah, sometimes people go there to ask for something really big, like a shift or a breakthrough. But it's not usually that devil in the black hat kind of story thing where there's no fire or a signature in blood or you're having to seal a bargain. It's usually very quiet. You bring your offering and you speak your ask. And if something shows up to listen, you better be ready to follow through with what you promised them. Now, that isn't just hoodoo either. I mean, you see crossroads work across many different traditions. In European witchcraft, Hecate is the goddess of the three-way crossroads, and people would leave her offerings during the dark moon and were warned once again not to look back on their way home. You got Hermes and Odin, all of the trickster and boundary spirits. They show up in places like this, not because they're dangerous, but because they understood transition. Changes happen at the edge of something. And that's what makes the crossroads so powerful. It's a place where anything can happen. It's where you stand in the very middle of four different directions and know whichever way you turn, something is going to shift. If you want to release something, write it down, fold it away from you 3 times and bury it at the crossroads. You pour a little water over it, a little rum over the spot, and you say, thank you. Then you walk away. Don't turn around because your work is done. There's no need to turn around. You've done what you came there to do. There's no looking back. Now, if you're asking for guidance, go just before sunrise or right at dusk, and you bring 3 coins. Stand still in the center and ask your question out loud. Then be quiet. Pay attention to the way the air moves, what you hear, and what comes up in your body. You're not begging, you're asking. And if the crossroads wants to answer, it will. Now, if you're going to make a pact, if you're asking for talent or vision or serious magical backing, you bring a real offering, something that means something to you that is a struggle to give up. You speak clearly, say what you want, and say what you're offering in return. Now, remember, the spirits don't owe you anything. And if they say yes, you better mean your part. You can also bury a spell when you want it to move. Something you wrote, something you made, or something you need to carry out into the world. Maybe it's a product you made. The crossroads sends it in every direction. That's why people say it gives things legs, because it makes them pick up and move. They go in all these 4 different directions. But here's the part most people skip: the rules. Number 1, you don't take anything from the Crossroads. It's not a novelty shop. It's not a gift shop. You don't look back once the work is done, and you don't talk to strangers on the way home. And you don't leave trash. If you brought everything there with you in a plastic bag, you take that plastic bag back home with you and then throw it away. And don't approach it like it's a dare. It is a serious religious commitment to many people. So the Crossroads is not a game. It's a place of serious power, and if you stir the dirt there, even a little, something is going to move. It might be exactly what you asked for, or it might be what you really needed but you didn't expect. Either way, you won't leave the same once you go there for this magical reason. So, in parts of Appalachia, folks talk about crossroads that only appear in certain conditions, as if they magically appeared just before you. In places like this, the fog doesn't seem to lift. It just sort of hangs around the place. Or you might find like a dead bird that was placed a little too perfectly directly in the dirt. These places are usually warnings, and you'll feel it in your bones. So if you run across one of these crossroads that isn't supposed to be there, it might be a warning you should just keep on walking. Choose a different crossroads to do your work. You'll know, you'll feel it. Some of them are just not meant to be worked at, or they've been worked at so much that they carry all that energy. And it's almost like it's full. It's like that crossroads is full. Pick another one. There's one story from North Alabama where a hunter, he went out into the land that he knew really well, and he found a cross carved into the forest floor. And there was a black rooster sitting right in the middle. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. When he turned around to head back, everything looked wrong. There was no trail. There were no landmarks, just silence. And 3 days later, he woke up in his bed with dirt under his fingernails and no memory of how he got home. And after that, he never hunted again. So I don't know what someone was doing out there in the middle of that crossroads, but what they did, it wasn't a crossroads. They made a crossroads. They made a crossroads by marking a cross into the forest floor, which is also a way to work. By making your own crossroads. You can make your own crossroads on a piece of paper. Now, out near Natchez, Mississippi, there's a cemetery road that crosses this old logging trail. And right at the intersection, people leave things. It might be like bones in red flannel, or doll parts, or jars of graveyard dirt. No one talks about it, but everyone knows not to touch them. And there's a story of someone who picked up one of those jars. They just wanted to look at it. And they said immediately they felt this jolt of hot behind their eyes. So they dropped it and they got in the car and they drove all the way till they crossed the county line before the pain stopped. But for 3 nights afterwards, something was pacing on their porch. They never saw it, but they heard it breathing and they heard it walking back and forth. And then on the 4th day, suddenly it had just gone away. So they never figured out what it was. But they probably also never picked up something at a crossroad that didn't belong to them either. Then you have the man in black. So he shows up all over Southern folklore. Sometimes he looks like a tall man in a coat. And sometimes he's actually a black dog with these cold black eyes. And they're always just far enough away to make you wonder what it is you're looking at. Now, a more recent modern story is about a woman who was driving through Mississippi late one night, and her car stalled at a crossroads, and she had no cell phone signal. There were no lights in sight. So she got out to stretch her legs and clear her head, and then she felt it. There was this shift in the air, like somebody else was there. She looked up, and across the road, there he was. There was no sound, no footsteps, just a man standing still, and he tipped his hat to her. And then suddenly he was gone. So she gets back in the car. She's a little frightened. She wanted to see if the car would start. But when she turned the key, the radio kicked on instead. And what was it? It was Robert Johnson, Me and the Devil Blues began to play. Then suddenly the engine started like nothing had ever been wrong. And for most people, that's the end of the story. I could only assume she got the hell out of there. So, very interesting story. But here's the hardest part to swallow about all this. It's probably the most honest. The Crossroads isn't about spirits or devils or shadowy figures. That's not what it's always about. Sometimes the thing that's waiting for you at the fork in the road is just a version of yourself you've been avoiding. That's what makes it such a potent symbol in spell work and even in story, because we all get there sooner or later. If there's a choice that splits you, a moment that'll cost you something. And in those moments, the devil doesn't need to show up. If you don't know yourself or you know what you want out of life, most of the time, you're going to sell yourself out just fine on your own. Now it's time for the spell segment of the show. This is where we take everything we've talked about and start putting the magic to work. And the first one I have for you is an Asking the Crossroads for Direction spell. This is a working for when you're stuck, when you're facing a decision or a shift or a moment where the next step just isn't clear. So you're asking the spirit of the crossroads to help show you the path that's right for you. Not the easiest one, but the true one. And what you'll need is a small piece of paper, a pen or pencil. Black ink is usually preferable. 3 coins, silver if you have them. If you don't, that's fine. You want a small cup or a jar of clean water, like spring water, filtered water, nothing scented, nothing colored. And optionally, you can bring some sort of personal token related to your question. Like it might be a key or a small photo or a stone or something that resonates with you that associates with this decision you're trying to make. You need a small shovel or a big spoon, something for digging. And make sure to wear clothes where you don't mind getting dirty. You feel comfortable, you feel in your own skin, and you're ready to actually do the work. Now there's timing. Sunrise is best for new beginnings, and dusk work is for like clarity and transition. There's always the new moon, which is completely ideal, but you have to go there when the need is real. I mean, a lot of times you can't wait for a new moon to show up to do what you've got to do. Sometimes the magic, it's not going to wait on the calendar. So always remember the sunrise and the dusk part. And if you can time it out, sure, go to a new moon for this. So what you do is you prepare your petition, write a question or intention on the paper. That's what a petition is. You're actually just stating what your intention is or what your question is. Be honest and be specific. So it's not where you make a speech or trying to sound poetic. We're not going to do a novella. Just clearly state what you need guidance on. For example, it'll be like, should I leave this job? Or what path should I take to grow my practice? That's simple, to the point. You fold the piece of paper. You fold it towards you 3 times. Each fold should be done with really a focus, holding that intention that this request is about the right answer coming to you. And then you go to the crossroads and you find a quiet 4-way intersection. I always think the country is the best, but you can't always do that. Somewhere without cars or foot traffic is what you want. If that's not possible, find the most liminal place you can, a place where the roads divide or they change. Walk up to the crossroads, don't park in it. You stand in the center if it's safe to, and don't rush it. Let yourself settle there and feel the directions around you. Notice the air. Notice the silence or any sounds that you hear. and also any shifts in your body. This is the moment of permission. You're entering this threshold. So speak your question out loud. It doesn't have to be loud, just audible, because what you're doing is you're actually letting the spirits of the place know you believe in them. You're here to do some work, and you would speak to them as you would speak to anyone else out loud, where you can be heard, so like someone is actually listening to you. Now you pour the water, slowly pour your water onto the ground as you say, "From this place I ask to be seen. From this place I ask to be guided. Let the spirits of the road carry my words to where they need to go." Now that's just an example. You can write your own if you want, but you can see the nature of that, what it's asking for. The water is actually an offering and a connector. It's what carries your request out into all four directions. Then you leave the coins, place them flat on the ground. Don't toss them. You're not paying off a spirit. You're showing respect. And then you bury your petition. Use your stick or your shovel or whatever you brought and dig this little shallow hole and place the folded paper in and then cover it back up. If there's a rock nearby, you might put it on top. It's not to trap the spell, but just to mark that it's done. And then if you brought a personal object with you, carry it back home with you now. It's part of the work now. Like if you were to have, like I said before, a key, it's now charged with this energy and charged with this intention, and you're going to use it as a talisman. So you might keep it on your altar or some place of focus until you receive an answer. And when you're done, you're going to walk away. You're going to turn around and leave. You're not going to look back. Don't speak to anyone until you're home and across your threshold. That's part of sealing the work. Some people ask, well, what if I can't drive to get back home? I have to turn the car around. All right, what you do is when you arrive at the crossroads, you go ahead and pull up and then turn around, park the car up a little bit from the crossroads, facing the direction of your house so you can get back, then walk up to the crossroads. So it just takes a little bit of pre-planning. If you can't go straight ahead to get home, then turn around when you get there. So that's the work. I mean, going to the crossroads isn't about drama. It's about clarity. You show up with a question, and if the place is listening, it might show you something you've been avoiding. You might not get an answer right away. It may come as a dream or a conversation or just this strong gut feeling or like a series of signs. Pay attention to what's going on over the next 7 days and write things down. If you ask, the crossroads will answer, but it's going to do it on its own time. And when that happens, you'll know. So it looks like this is the end of the road for us. This is Papa G, and you've been listening to the Feral Folklorist. Next time, we're talking about the Greenbrier ghost who testified in her own murder trial. It's the true story of Elva Zona Heaster, whose ghost appeared to her mother and revealed her own murderer. It's a rare example of spectral evidence that led to a conviction, and we're going to break down what that says about justice, belief, and spirit communication. So, in the meantime, if you go out to the crossroads anytime soon, remember, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. If you'd like to hear the After the Show episode where I go deeper into the folklore, spill a little extra dirt, and sometimes rant just a bit, consider becoming a patron over on my Patreon at patreon.com/PapaG. You can find the official site for the podcast at feralfolklorist.com. And if you need spell supplies for any of the workings we talk about on the show, our metaphysical shop, Aromagees Botanica, has been slinging magic for 25 years. That's over at aromagees.com.